let's start with decentralized physical infrastructure, how to scale it in the rest of the world, because I don't know, is it everywhere? Is it important? And how does AI have an effect on this? So I would like to have a quick intro with all of us, like to get to know a little bit each one of you and what you're doing in your project, and then we can kick off the discussion. I'll start with you, Tom.
Great, thanks. Good to be here. I am going to be very loud, so I hope people can hear me okay. Fluence is a decentralized compute platform, and you've probably heard of platforms or decentralized compute. What differentiates Fluence is that we are CPU focused for now. And so CPUs are the compute that do all the work that happen with the exception of training AI. So when you're ordering an Uber, how is that Uber rate calculated? Where's the map? How does the map know how long it takes for you to get there? You know, when you're searching for a flight, where are the flights? All that lookup, all that computation is what CPUs perform. That's what Fluence is doing, is a decentralized platform of that, which is lower cost, a lot lower cost, and resilient. And so that is a kind of key building block for a decentralized world. We have decentralized storage, we have decentralized payments, but without decentralized compute, we're subject to Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. And in this part of the world, you know, maybe Tencent and Alibaba. So you need to have decentralized compute for a decentralized world.
Hi, my name is Gaurav. I'm a CEO at IO.net. We are a decentralized AI cloud. We're around 2-year-old project. Our main revenue source right now is GPU, but now we are venturing into the AI space. We have our inventory in more than 130 countries. And yes, excited to be here and talking to the team.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Jaden. I chair Aethir Foundation. Aethir is a distributed GPU network. We gross about 130 million in annual revenue a year. We're mostly enterprise grade, so we provide cloud compute, AI bare metal to enterprises all over the world. And we do settlement on chain, which is why we're a crypto project.
Hey everyone. My name is Benji, so I'm the founder at Orbofi. So we're actually one of the first AI agent platform in this space. We've been live for like 3 years. We have like 3 million agents on the platform. But we act as a factory of AI agents where people, consumers, and developers can create their own agents in like less than a minute. But these agents, and then they're kind of like Twitter reply bots. We don't do that. But these are multimodal, tune tradable. These people can plug in any diffusion model into them. So we act as a factory for agents. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, for context, I'm from WeatherXM. We deploy weather stations, devices like this one, all around the world. We have more than 9,000. And for us, it's important to grow the network to areas that don't have infrastructure, like Latin America, Africa, India, South Asia. These are places that lack weather stations, and as a result, the weather forecasts are not very good. So that's what scale means to us, basically, and following that, demand and revenue comes. Does the same apply to you, Tom? Does it matter where the infrastructure is?
You know, it's interesting. For us, we think of scale in terms of revenue. Revenue is what we mean, revenue in customers. And for better or worse, that is really in non-emerging markets for us. And so the compute that we have online now is in the US, in Europe, and in Asia. And I see that continuing going forward. And if you think about DePIN overall, we are still at the very early stages of revenue. And so you think of well-known projects that have 3 million, 5 million in ARR. This, if you fast forward, these should be tens of millions in terms of revenue. And that revenue is going to come from the market growth in the West, mainly in Asia for sure, and also from taking share from the existing cloud or other Web 2 or traditional businesses. And so I think there are plenty of opportunities to expand and grow markets outside of that, without a doubt. Those are not the customers that we are initially focused on. because the share of cloud is huge where we are, and it also continues to grow significantly in terms of dollars. So there's plenty of opportunity for us in non-EM, and I would love to do this in EM, but in a world of finite resources, we must kind of prioritize where we get the biggest kind of bang for our dollar of infrastructure and resources and time and effort spent.
Yeah. So yeah, does this apply to you guys as well? Is it
So
the
I think
same?
it's not a very straightforward answer, honestly. It has multiple variables. I'll try to cover a few, right, to give more clarity. There's a technical part to it. There's a market dynamic part to it. And then there's a strategic part to it as a project. So the technical part, does the GPU and the location of GPU matter? It absolutely matters. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you come in here in this room and you have to do KYC, assume. And now the lighting is not good. You have to click an image from your mobile app. You'll click an image, it's blurry. So the app should tell you the image is blurry. If the model has to perform good, this AI model has to perform good, it needs a bit of power. That's not on your mobile. It's somewhere outside in a GPU. So let's say your mobile clicks an image automatically, and now this image, we are sitting in Dubai, but goes to US, right? It takes almost half a second there to go and just come back. The request, it's a speed of light problem. No technical problem, it's a speed of light problem. The request goes from here, goes to US, comes back, half second gone. Let's say half a second, which is a good time, to just check this image on the model, whether it's blurry or not blurry. So in 1 second, you get the response back. The response is, image is perfectly clear. But in the meantime, your mobile is not even on the passport, it's outside. So does that output even matter to you? It doesn't, right? So technically, the location of the GPU matters. There's a technical part to it, right? But there's a market dynamic part to it also, which is, you are a startup and you have limited money. And the reality is that the price of compute differs in every part of the world. In Europe, comparatively, it's a bit higher. US also comparatively a bit higher. Canada, for some reason, is cheaper. In Asia, it's much more cheaper. That's just the market dynamics, right? It is what it is. Now, as a builder, you have different use cases. I gave you a use case where the response time really mattered for you. But there are a bunch of use cases where you will just migrate your data, the whole company's data, one time a day into a data center. It'll get processed in 10, 12 hours, and then we'll get back to you. So this migration of data going and coming back is only once a day. So it's not that costly. But as a business, if you have this use case, price matters. So for that, depending on the type of customer, they may want a GPU which is close. And there are some people who will be saying, I don't care what the GPU is, as long as it's cheap to me, I'm fine. That's a market dynamic part to it. And now the third part to it is the strategic part. So what are we doing here? We are sitting in a decentralized ecosystem, right? We are trying to create decentralized businesses. So let's say we talk about revenue, we talk about businesses, and we are earning revenue. But all your GPU literally stands and sits in one data center. And if that data center goes down, your application is in a, let's say, a smart contract, right? It's deployed in 10 different countries. But your GPU is sitting in one data center. Are you really decentralized? So there's a strategic part to it also, that when you're building your app, how strategically you're distributed. Not in just one country, but different zones. So it's not a very straightforward answer. There are multiple variables to it. So I have my own philosophy, how I built it. So we really built it ground up, decentralized. Our compute is in 130 plus countries. We believe it's a marketplace. There are multiple kind of users. They would want different prices, and so on and so forth. So it's not that straightforward. You have to think about it and think in terms of customers. Because what we are doing is, we are building something pure, which is decentralized. But at the same time, you can build the most best tech in the world, but if the customer doesn't want it, there's no point. So you have to build it in a customer perspective also, where the pricing, location, all this also matters.
So where are you focused though?
We right now are, honestly, we cater to both normal builders, like a college kid, and an early guy also, and enterprise also. But the reality is 95% or plus of our revenue comes from enterprises, right? That's the reality. And it's also because of, again, market dynamic, because the enterprises come with big ticket items. Like you can literally onboard 10,000 normal college-going kids and early builders, but the amount of revenue they'll build you is less than 1 million. And suddenly only one enterprise will come you and will give you $5+ million revenue. So in terms of revenue, are we more heavy on the enterprise side? The answer is absolutely yes. But as a product, what we are building is catering to both.
Yep. So Jaden, does the same apply to you guys? Does gaming, I'm assuming part of your GPUs is used in gaming?
Yeah, so about 70% of our revenue right now comes from AI, but a lot of our early enterprise business started with doing cloud gaming for games with hundreds of millions of users. And it's exactly like you said. Where cloud gaming is most powerful today, most of us don't experience cloud gaming because we actually have phones that are powerful enough to run like PUBG or like stream video and everything like that. But in a lot of parts around the world, and I'm sure you've seen this when you're deploying weather stations, is a lot of people in South America, South Africa, or other parts of the world, they don't have hardware that's really that good. But gaming companies still want to acquire them as users, still want to acquire them as gamers, acquire them as spend. And so that's where they need to engage cloud gaming so that you can stream the game on your phone without actually having it downloaded or run on your hardware. And exactly like Gaurav said, it's in these specific use cases that latency is super important, right? Because if you're running the instance of the game in America and you're playing it in South America, it's terrible, right? You're gonna have like 500 ping, you're gonna have packet loss. It's like you wouldn't even want to play the game. And that's where, I think in the GPU space, it's really nice to see that a lot of governments are starting to become more and more supportive. They want to build their own data centers. We've had friends of mine working with the Vietnamese government to build data centers out here in the desert, Abu Dhabi, Dubai. A ton of money is going into this. Even though AI instancing or AI inferencing is getting cheaper and cheaper and more efficient, the number of applications that rely on this inferencing is growing at a massive rate. And that's where I think both of us see still a huge potential and growth for the revenue in the GPU space and just the overall market for the GPU space.
Great. So, Benjalun, does location matter to you guys?
I would say location, not really. I mean, I was just going to echo what also Gaurav said. For us as developers, we're relying on GPUs and infrastructure is that we care about like a number of like limited things: latency, speed, cost, and I would say the complexity from a developer standpoint to integrate those endpoints to have that fast inference. Really, that's at the end of the day, that's what we care about. But at the same time, we care about decentralization, at least distribution of that hardware. I guess like for a lot of the Web 2 companies don't care about that. They say, is it fast? Is it cost? Like, is it cheap? Great. But as being a crypto and blockchain native companies, that it's part of the ethos. You have to figure it out. And we have to be working with companies like you guys is that to enable at least that distribution of infrastructure as much as we can while keeping that extremely fast inference. And that's at the end of the day, we serve end users. If someone who's like, I want to generate an image or I want to generate like a render website, is that, are we going to enable that in like 5 seconds or 2 minutes? It makes a whole difference. So really, I think just like location not much, as long as it is like distributed enough to protect our ethos of being decentralized to a certain extent, and it's going to keep getting better. Like also what you guys are doing is that powering that infrastructure that us developers and a consumer-facing application, we have to serve, right? So there's like no in between, but how do we best optimize on like multiple fronts at the same time? Yeah.
The only thing I'm going to add is the technical considerations. Latency is what we're talking about here, which is a huge important thing. But the other driver of location is obviously regulation, right? And so regulation makes a big difference depending on the use case, depending CPU, GPU, data storage, data ownership, et cetera. And so I think I would put those are two sort of separate silos that drive kind of location of hardware.
We came across this issue when we expanded our network in Africa, actually. And in the early days, we had this as well with China. So China treats weather data as military data. And we had some of our weather stations removed by the government because they consider it an espionage kind of thing. And in Africa, we realized that legislation, well, where it exists, is quite different, or the opinion of the government when it comes to weather data is quite different from country to country. And there are countries that they are not very happy with making weather data available to the public domain as open data, basically. They want to make sure they capture the value first, and then all the rest will follow. So this was quite surprising for me. And I'm wondering, like, you guys, do you actually have at this moment customers like creative artists from those places, maybe from Africa? Do you think you can accelerate those markets in ways that wouldn't be possible without your platform before? Like, can you tell us more?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, I mean, we have about like 350, 400,000 users all over the globe. You know, and obviously that's the having a serverless and just like having servers close to the end user is that it makes obviously in terms of latency. But yes, we generally believe that, in emerging markets, giving individuals and consumers as well as developers that creative power to create just like functional agents that perhaps can generate revenue for them, or just like help them in any kind of professional or personal use case, that's definitely it. That's part of our mission. That's why we act as a factory of agents, literally to just like enable these kind of use cases for people. But I would say is that part of what I said previously, just distribute the hardware as much as we can, get it closer to the end user, but there's no limit, at the end of the day. Unless if it's like each person is running his own node, but it's gonna a few years from now, right? But I think we just like reach a certain point where it's like good enough, but it's not still great. And that's why we rely on people like you guys to push the boundaries and just like push the hardware to the extent. But yeah, to your question.
Great.
To be honest, like I think in a lot of places, these Web 2 players, it's just about the price part. Like we discussed about pricing. Pricing is any out there. I think like I normally give an example, which I've seen practically, but I'll come to the other variables also. Normally in any AI company, 50% or more of a revenue just goes on compute and the cloud services part. And people just think of this number and just let it be. It's not, right? Because if you start to add it up, it becomes super big. So imagine you are funded $40 million. Imagine $40 million. And out of that $40 million, 20 million you will give it to just compute and cloud. 20 million. The centralized players are normally 60 to 70% costlier. That means if you would have taken from a normal data center or any of the DePINs or any survivor, I'll not even take my project name, all DePIN providers, right? Stability could be different, but pricing, you take from any DePIN, you're spending around 6 million out of 20 then. You're saving $14 million you're saving. Can you imagine how long your runway could be as a company? How many ideas you can try? How many engineers and data science you can hire? Like only a builder, once he knows the importance of cash and when he sees his runway, he starts to realize what he has done. And sometimes for a lot of these builders, it's way too late. The second thing is, which people have never seen talking about, which is these things were started with Web 2, and in the greed of money, these Web 2 people got poisoned, which is a lot of these startups need help. They are builders who are building for the first time, and they were supposed to get help. So you talk about Amazon or Azure, they have a role known as an architect. So I was in AWS in past, I worked there. So they have a role as an architect. That architect role was supposed to guide people that you're building this, you're not building it correctly, you use this product, it's cheaper, faster, better suited for your project. Or use this, it'll help you in architecture and scale. Those roles today, if you talk to them, are just basically a selling pitch. They always talk to you every quarter and sell you a new product which you don't even need. They're basically poisoning the startup whole ecosystem by pulling more money in rather than helping them out. Right? Thirdly, I've advised a lot of companies, and what I've seen is that in these startup companies, when they need help, they get stuck. They reach out to these big centralized players for help, that my GPU is not able to scale, I'm stuck, my machine is not working. They get responses in 2 days. And after 2 days, in some third world country, some young engineer come and responds, I do this. And that's the first response which comes on Google. All these players have already tried that thing. And they say, oh, we've already tried this. Like, give me some genuine help. They take 5 more days and then they come back with a real answer. And for these startups, 7 days is like literally living and dying, because these startups may only have 1 paid or 2 paid customers, and in 7 days, if they lose that customer, the company is done. That's a reality we are living in, right? So categorically, yes.
I have to admit that we are guilty of this sin as well. Like in WeatherXM, we're using Filecoin to archive our data, but at the same time, we're spending a lot of money on AWS, and I think it's about time to change that with your infrastructure, guys. I want to touch quickly on another topic because we're going to run out of time. I want us to discuss a little bit how does AI agents change the landscape, not just AI itself. Like, I know, Tom, you've mentioned many times that the Achilles heel of DePIN is demand, and so demand comes from real humans using the value that we're creating, that we're offering. But I guess revenue and demand can come from AI agents too. Do you see that having an effect on you or any of you guys? And do you see ways that an agent can take advantage of crypto rails to automatically pay the bill and set up stuff and consume them and then dispose them in a more efficient way that a developer would do?
Well, first, I think we all are involved with AI agents to one extent or another. And I think most people in this room are going to be impacted. So you're the exception if you're not. So that's your first point. But I think you're asking about AI agents being effective consumers. And I think that is inevitably the case. I think that's less, I think though, for the Fluence side, for our decentralized compute, we're actually going to help enable those agents to run. So AI agents are effectively more customers of ours. The compute that runs AI agents can run on Fluence cheaper. So I don't know if the AI agent is going to be buying its own compute, right? I'm not sure how that circle is going to work, or if it is set up to run, but effectively it should. And when their agents are building other agents, presumably they will search for the lowest cost and most resilient compute. And so, and frankly, AI agents should also be more comfortable with more complexity in terms of setup. So it may save you UI, UX infrastructure costs because the agent is more adept at installation, right? And so they could be a terrific customer for us to run their own infrastructure, if you will. That's at least how we think about it. And agents are, our first customer base are third-party node providers, but agents are the second kind of customer base that we are focused on.
I think the infrastructure for letting agents pay for themselves or do productive work already mostly exists. If we're just talking about building software, right? Having them build Zapier automations or building Zapier automations for them to make payments to Vercel, for example. And it's even easier if it's on-chain, right? If an agent's trying to book compute for itself on like IO or Aethir, it's super easy, right? You just spin up a wallet, give it a plugin, use Eliza or something, and teach it to use its own wallet. The main problem, at least I think from what we see, from the demand from AI agents, is that AI agents are just not quite there yet in really being able to build very useful tools that actually bring revenue to the infrastructure layer, right? Like, I write a lot of vibe code personally. Like, we just build applications for fun, and it's been a million times easier now because of V0 and Claude and all these other great AI coding tools out there. But still, we never really ever, we've been able to ship demos in hours, minutes, but we've never really built something that at scale, tens or hundreds of thousands of users can use. And because agents can't do that yet, we don't really have the capacity or capability, or there's no need for the agents to then go and, find their own hardware, find their own infrastructure layer, find their own PaaS tools, right, to scale that application, right? And so that's what I see of AI agents today.
But do you think this is gonna progressively, like gradually change, or could it change overnight?
Absolutely. I think we're maybe 1 to 2 commits or LLM improvements away from being able to do that.
Because we recently launched an MCP client for our weather services, the professional weather services, and we also act as a weather oracle in prediction markets. And in theory, somebody could use our MCP adapter to market make in our prediction markets and have an opinion and make money basically out of the services that we provide. Nobody's doing that today, but technically all the pieces are there, so it could explode magically one day. The question is when, of course.
I think the other way around, to be honest. Because I genuinely feel on the ground what happens is very different than what happens in crypto. Will we see a lot of AI agent companies coming up? Absolutely yes. Do I think a lot of creative ideas will be tried? Absolutely yes. Will there be a lot of hype? Absolutely yes. Will a lot of money will be made by the projects, not by tokens, but actual business? The answer will be no. In the next 5 years, I don't see it happening. I think if you guys take a step back, go to the actual businesses which make money in this finance side, banking, like pick any. Just go back, talk to people who work in these finance companies, like Intuits, these banks. They're highly resistant to change. Some of these companies are working on programming languages which are 30 years old. They don't change that. You think if they're not changing their working modules which are earning money 30-year-old and they're not even adapting to new proven languages, they will get attached to a new concept which was built just in the last 3 years? The answer on ground is absolutely no. Right? As humans, we get excited very fast. And crypto industry is the one where it gets even more hyped. Right? But in reality, technology takes time to get matured. We are talking about driverless cars for the last 15 years. Has it happened? No. Will it happen? Answer is yes. Right? But I think, honestly speaking, that's the AI agent part. But on the other side, the rosy picture I'll say is we're sitting in the industry, honestly, is DePIN part at least, where there's an actual demand, there's an actual usage, and there's a genuine Web 2 traffic coming in. Because the concept is simple. The product is very simple. There is no hype. There is no magic. They need a compute. They need a GPU. It's there. The methodology which the DePINs aggregate the GPU, it's proven. It's been done. This concept has been done in a lot of other industries like Airbnb and Booking.com. It's simple. So, will Web3 make a lot of revenue? The answer is yes. In DePIN, yes. AI agents, in my opinion, companies will be spinned up. A lot of creative ideas and juices will come up. Revenue, at least in the next 3 years, from the business, not that much.
I think maybe you're underestimating how hungry new startup founders are and how much the AI agents can accelerate their hunger essentially to capture value in the market. But yeah, I mean, we're running out of time. A final few words, if you want to give us the latest updates on your projects, what the community should pay attention to, any latest news, or where should people find out more about you. I'm going to start with you, Benjalun. Are there any news you want to share from your project before we wrap up? We just have a minute.
I guess to the point. So we're releasing our V3 mainnet in like 2 weeks. So we are making these agents tradable, able to transact on chain. But really, with the main idea to give power to this agent to run communities and to transact within those communities. Ideally, so that it can evolve into ecosystems, but all ultimately that are run by the agents. So yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah, we have a ton of major upgrades, technical and non-technical, in June and July. So you can follow us on Twitter. It's at Aethir Cloud. Aethir is spelled like that. So yeah.
We are basically just doing a basic stuff. Our compute side of things have been solved. That business is organically growing. Like in the last 5 months, we've earned like more than 40 million revenue already as ARR. So that part is growing. Now, as a company, what we are venturing into is more on the demand of the customers. We have gotten some Web2 customers who are big, already moved in, around 8 or 10 of them. So we are basically now building the features which they want. So they're basically asking very simple stuff. The features, the products, they actually see it in Amazon and Google, which is your Kubernetes of the world, queuing system, managed databases. Like that's the product they want. They want to build it on our systems so that their migration from these centralized systems could come to us easier, and they can actually use this compute in a much easier way. So that's what we've been building. We are basically just doing simple, boring stuff, which will help these Web2 migrate to us and our platform and bring revenue.
Yeah, I think for us, it's just building our revenue pipeline and converting that pipeline and keeping growing that. That's just simple blocking and tackling, and also, as I think we heard from everybody here, just increasing product features, adding product, adding features to ever expand what we're going at, what we're all different executing on. And Fluence is the same as everybody on this panel in terms of just adding features, making more relevant, and growing the addressable market over the next 5 years.
Great. So, and for WeatherXM, we are expanding the network towards Global South. We're in a position to give away thousands of weather stations for free. So potential partners, deployers who want to participate in the network, just go to our website, follow our social media, and subscribe to become a deployer. So thank you, everyone here, guys. This was a great chat, and see you at the next DePIN event.
Awesome, will do.